Hello friends, this is Neetu Jain. Today we are going to talk about perception. Have you ever thought about it that as to why it is so that two people look at the same thing and they interpret it differently? It's all because of perception, friends. Today we are going to discuss about as to what is perception, what is the process of perception, what are the factors affecting perception, and what are different perceptual errors which creep in the process of perceiving things during our day-to-day life. Perception is the process of receiving, selecting, organizing of environmental stimuli and interpreting them to provide meaningful experiences for the perceiver. According to Banks and Krajicek, perception represents the psychological process whereby people take information from the environment and make sense of their world. Process of perception involves receiving of stimuli, selecting of stimuli, organizing of stimuli and interpreting of stimuli. As far as process of perception is concerned, first of all we receive the stimuli. There are so many stimuli available in the environment around us, but we receive stimuli through our five senses. Probably we receive better stimuli from our eyes and ears rather than smell or through touch. We do not select all the stimuli. We select stimuli if they are of any peculiar characteristic, and then we try to organize them, we try to assign meaning to them, we try to put them in a pattern, and then we interpret the stimuli so as to finally perceive the thing. Now let us see what are the factors influencing perception. First is characteristics of the target, second is characteristics of the perceiver, and third one is characteristics of the situation or the context that thing is into. First of all, characteristics of the perceiver. Perceiver means the person who is receiving the stimuli. So these are the characteristics which influence the process of perception. His attitude, his mood, his self-concept or his learning or his needs affect the process of perception. Now let us see the attitude and self-concept of the person. A person with negative attitude and self-concept can pick up only negative traits in other person, and a person with positive attitude can look for positive side of the story, can look for positive traits in other person. Mood. We all have seen the impact of mood in our day-to-day life. If we are in a positive mood, then we tend to form more positive impression of others. On the contrary, if we are in a bad mood, then we tend to see negative everything around us. Learning. Past learning influences our process of perception today. What we have learned in our past influences what we see today. Needs. Researchers have indicated that whatever needs we have at that point in time, they influences our current process of perception. Now let us see the characteristics of the target. Physical appearance of the target, size, location, repetition, contrast, these things influence the process of perception. Now let us see how. Physical appearance. It has been found that those objects which are moving, people tend to capture them faster as compared to objects which are stand still. Size of the object matters a lot. For example, there is a procession going on and suddenly an elephant comes. So you tend to capture the picture of elephant first since it's a huge. Similarly, in a group, if a very tall person, 6 feet long person is going, then we tend to perceive him better. Contrast. Suppose a group of students enter a class and there is a boy who is wearing a yellow color shirt, dark yellow color shirt with a black trousers, then you tend to see him first. So he tend to get our attention faster as compared to other students who are in other colors. So that's the significance of contrast. Repetition. Researchers have indicated that instructions which are repeated by the superiors are captured faster by the subordinates as compared to those instructions which are not repeated. And we have seen this example in our day-to-day life as well, wherein we see on television there are many advertisements which are repeated again and again, so that they stay in our mind for a longer period of time. Location. Location also matters a lot in the process of perception. If any object is in center, then we tend to capture it faster as compared to any other object which is on the sides. We tend not to perceive it as compared to the object which is in the center. Characteristic of the situation is nothing but the social context in which interaction between target and the perceiver takes place. So, it is the context which matters a lot in the process of perception. For example, business conversations after working hours or at lunch are considered as taboo in Japan, and if you try to talk about business during these hours, you are considered as rude. On the contrary, in the Indian context, we are quite used to talk about business during lunch hours or maybe after working hours, and it's not considered as rude. Now let us see the errors in perception. There are certain errors which creep in the process of perception. Some of these errors are stereotyping, halo effect, attribution theory, projection, constant error, self-fulfilling prophecy or Pygmalion effect, etc. So let us see first of all stereotyping. Stereotyping, as we all know, is nothing but judging a person on the basis of group to which he or she belongs. So stereotyping can be based on your age, race, caste, sex, color, etc. For example, we may judge a person who is old as a rigid person. On the contrary, a young person may be considered as a flexible person in his approach, while the case may not be so. Similarly, we may consider women as not a good driver and males as good drivers. Halo effect. Halo effect is judging a person on the basis of one single characteristic. For example, based on his appearance, based on his sociability, etc. If we have seen a person to be quite intelligent, we may think that he may be a person with a good behavior as well. He may be a person who must be having humility, or he may be a person who is quite helpful. So just by judging his intellect, we formed an impression about the person as to be quite helpful and quite supportive, which is wrong. Projection. Projection is nothing but tendency of people to see their traits in other person, and people project their own feelings, tendencies and motives into their judgment of others. For example, an honest person tends to see everyone as honest. On the contrary, a manipulative person would tend to see everyone as manipulative. First impression error is nothing but when we meet a person first and we form an impression, a general impression about the person in our first meeting only. That's the first impression error. Next one is self-fulfilling prophecy or Pygmalion effect or expectancy. It means that a person's behavior is determined by other person's expectations from him. If a boss expects big things from his subordinates, then they are not likely to let him down. A boss's expectation of an individual affects his behavior towards the individual and the individual response as well. Attribution theory. It is the process by which people are interested in not only observing the behavior but finding out its causes as well. People are interested in not only observing behavior but in assessing the causes of that behavior as well in the organizations. Fundamental attribution error. It is the tendency to attribute the behavior of other people more to internal factors than to external factors. For example, a person got late in the morning in the office, then we tend to think that person is lazy, which is why he got late, then to think that he must have got late because of traffic jam or some other external factors. Self-serving bias. It is nothing but tendency to attribute our favorable responses to internal factors and our failures to external factors. For example, we take credit for our successes while we blame others and situations for our failures. Perceptual defense. Perceptual defense is tendency of people to protect themselves against objects, people or situations that are threatening to them. People see and hear what they want to see and hear and disregard the rest. People tend to perceive things that are supportive and satisfying, and they tend to disregard the things which are not so satisfying or which are disturbing. Now let us see the implications of perception. First is, we can overcome all the perceptual errors which creep in the process of perception, and we need to be perceiving things as they are. Next is, we can become more open and tolerant to the viewpoint of other person, as the focus should be on the intent and the message. If we realize that everyone perceives differently, then we can create a society that is more understanding and less judgmental. Thank you friends for your time.